Yes. Yeah. They've got some. They wouldn't be. Right.
Okay, good afternoon. From one sport to the next. Couple announcements. We will get a more, finalized spring media schedule to you all. Thank you for your patience on that. We've just kind of been working around the women's basketball tournament, the men's basketball team, trying to find days that are most convenient for you all for coverage. So I think next week we'll do something on Tuesday, but we'll finalize that later this week. I'll send out an email on time and what exactly we're going to do. We will have a transcript today, like past press conferences. We have microphone holders. We got Jack and Brant. Raise your hand. Please identify yourself and your outlet for those watching on the internet. And with that, we'll get right to Coach Ferentz.
Thank you, Matt. Good to see everybody. It's been a while. Everybody here has been busy, covering a lot of good success stories, and we've been quiet for a while too, which isn't all bad. But first of all, I just want to congratulate Coach Bluter and the entire team and program, her staff, her team. Just it's been so much fun to watch those guys, and I really had to fight hard last night to get that victory. So really happy for them as they move on, and wish them the best, certainly moving forward. And just I think they've really captivated a lot of hearts and minds along the way. So just happy for them. We started the second week of spring practice today. This morning had our fourth workout. So like always, it's really good to get started, and it's an important time not only for the players but also the coaches. Just a real opportunity, I think, for everybody. And basically the winter program runs about 8 weeks after the guys get back, chance to work on their physical and mental development, and then during that same period the coaches are finishing up recruiting and then working on the system. So we transition after spring break into spring practice, and it's just a good opportunity for us to get on the field. And thing I've always enjoyed about it, it's really very deliberate teaching time. There's no pressure of getting ready for a ball game on Saturday or at any point during spring. We're really not trying to get our team game ready. We're just trying to watch the guys and see how they're developing, how they're improving, and how much they can retain, handle new situations, those types of things. So to me, it's all about growth and development, and it's been our approach each and every year. And every year we talk about, when we get back together in January, it's a new year calendar-wise. It's a new team, regardless of how many players you have back or don't. It's going to be a different team, and you really kind of start from scratch. And as you transition forward now to spring practice, we only have 15 opportunities to put helmets on. 3 of those are without pads, but 15 with helmets, and that'll be it until we get going in camp. So, the best way to practice football is to practice football with helmets on, obviously, and so there's some things we can do in this period that you can't do in the out of season, in the summer, that type of deal. So basically what I'm saying is every opportunity is really important too, and hopefully our players understand that. I think they get that. Again, it is all about growth. You hear people talk about, the game slowing down, and really that's a result of seeing things better and being able to do things better, and those are the things that you can only do when you're out on the field practicing. And then the meeting time, I think, is every bit as valuable as the practice time, and fortunately in the spring you have really good opportunity to have good meeting time, quality meeting time, more so than in season, if that makes any sense. So it's a real opportunity for players, if they're paying attention, to grow forward or move forward and grow as players. Just in general terms, if you look at it right now, special teams, obviously we need a new punter. We have a new punter, and we're punting competition, and we'll see how that goes during the course of the spring. Also, we're looking at all positions, basically, see who the core guys are going to be, and returners, that type of deal. Defensively, we're fairly veteran. And, certainly we'll make some tweaks, but our system, we've had a system that's been in place pretty much for 25 years. So that's a little different scenario than offense where obviously we're going through basically everything's new language and everything about it's new. So there's a lot of new teaching going on there, new learning from everybody or for everybody. So that kind of reflects our team in some ways too. We've got a group that's veteran in some areas, some respects, and maybe more veteran than we've been. 6-year guys. The COVID year changed dynamics a little bit, and then the flip side is we've got a lot of guys that haven't played much. Kind of two tiers if you think about guys that have been in the program but have been behind some pretty good players. I think about a guy like Jaden Harrell, who's we think a really good middle linebacker. He's been behind Jack Campbell and now Jay Higgins, so a good chance for him to get some really good quality work. And then we've got a lot of young guys that haven't played, the first-year guys and even the second-year guys. So real good opportunity for these guys to get quality work and get a good look at them as well. Just a couple of things before I open up for questions. Just a couple of comments about the transfer portal and NIL, big topics, obviously, and what we're doing. And I think about the transfer portal, I think in general terms it's been good for us. I go back to adding a player like Jack Heflin several years ago or Zach Van Valkenburg. Mekhi Sargent came from Iowa Western, but nonetheless a new player coming in who really added a lot to our team, ended up being a team captain. Think about last year with guys like Nick Jackson, Rusty Feth, maybe not headline players, yet really good players and very impactful players. And, I think Nick became a headline player in some ways. Rusty Lyman, both, Cade and Eric. So, we've really, I think, benefited in that way. And we'll continue to look in that regard. And then I think, as most of you know, we had a player join us back in January that had a change of heart after spring break. And as I said a week ago, really, I think the bottom line there is that you don't want a player on your football team in the program that doesn't want to be here. So that's always kind of been our feeling. And we certainly, in my mind at least, it's best for both parties to probably go separate ways at that point. And, but that's part of the transfer portal. And we haven't dealt with a lot of that, but certainly came up last week. NIL, I think that's overall been positive in a lot of ways. It's been positive for our guys. I think positive for a lot of college athletes. And it's kind of interesting if you look at it going back. I remember in the 80s it was a big deal to get TV exposure. CBS came in and did a game that was a big deal, or ABC. And, that world's kind of transitioned a little bit. It seems like facilities became a real big thing, and now NIL is starting to surface a little bit and become more impactful. And, I think it's fair to say that having a good NIL program is a key differentiator in both recruiting and maybe more importantly retention. I think that's probably where our focus is a little bit more, and really feel fortunate in a lot of ways that we have a strong presence with the Swarm Collective. It's a voluntary effort, and it's basically been supported by supporters, donors, and fans. So very appreciative of that. But the bottom line is it's not going away. It is part of college athletics now, and at least in the immediate future, I don't see that changing much. So I think both in some ways are really healthy, but I think right now certainly the combination of both, it's interesting and probably not something that's really working very well. And I think right now the bottom line is we have a flawed system, and probably like a lot of people, I think obviously it'd be great to get to a point where we can have a system put in place that's going to be sustainable. And I'm not sure I have any answers on that equation, but it's certainly something to keep an eye on as we move forward. But all in all, it's good to be started here. It's good to be back on the field, and I'll throw it out for questions and see where we go.
Hi, Kirk. Scott Doctrine with The Athletic. I hope your winter was wonderful. Wanted to ask you about regarding the portal, the player who chose to leave. I guess first is, were you surprised that he left? Second, is there anything that could be done in the short term about I won't say preventing players from leaving, but leaving situations like this where you bring somebody in for 2 months and they're gone and they do what they do?
Yeah, surprised, no. Somewhere in the first year, my first year of being a head coach at the University of Maine, can't remember what happened exactly, but I told my wife I went home that night. I said, if I ever come home and say I'm surprised by anything, just hit me with a baseball bat. So I try not to get too surprised by anything. I think it's just probably a reflection of the system, quite frankly, and where we're at right now. And as you know, a couple lawsuits have come into play when it comes to the transfer portal and also NIL. So probably the biggest concern in this whole thing, just aren't any boundaries. There's no structure, no framework, and I think that part makes it interesting in the fact I don't know if it is sustainable. So I think it's at some point we're going to have to be able to have a framework and a mode of operation. But it's just part of the business, I guess, and fortunately we haven't experienced too many of those types of things. But again, at the end of the day, whenever it happens, if it does happen, you don't want a player in the program doesn't want to be here. If his heart and soul's not into it, it's really not good for him, and it's not good for us either, or his teammates. So I think that's kind of the bottom line. If there's a silver lining here too, we didn't spend any practice reps with someone who had no intention of being here, and I think that's a positive as well.
Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports. Kirk, dovetailing off that, do you happen to know if Kadyn is still enrolled? Because I'm trying to figure out, I've never heard of a case like this where these guys do it at this point in the season, where they are right now.
Yeah, it's probably a byproduct of that lawsuit, freedom. So I assume he is. I assume he's going to finish out the semester and then go from there. But I'm not sure about his whereabouts right now.
You are the longest tenured coach, so what you say matters throughout the country. I wonder is it worth wasting any time in considering, a year from now or pretty quickly, there's going to be revenue sharing, players may be paid, how that impacts the locker room or not?
Well, no, what's the question?
Have you given that thought?
Oh, yeah, sure. I think we've already given that thought because NIL's, created that. There's been a lot of things that came with NIL that was really interesting to consider. I think the locker room's first and foremost for us. So our approach has been to, try to make it a fairly even-tiered thing, if you will, and I don't know how the right word to say it is, but try to make sure everybody has an opportunity to be rewarded through the system, if you will. So, we've tried to do it in a way that we think would be fair, in a way that the players, more importantly, they think would be fair. And I think, the fact we had eight guys come back this out of season, choose to come back, I think it's probably a pretty good reflection that we hit it right this year. But I think it's also going to be a moving target. And the one thing I will say, I spent 6 years in the NFL. It's funny, Charlie Bowen was back here this morning, just took a job at the Giants, and we were talking about the difference of the the college football versus the NFL, get my NILs mixed up here, alphabet soup. But at least, in the NFL, when you sign a contract, coaches and players, and you're there, or you don't work. It's one or the other. So I don't know how we get there in college football or college athletics, but it'd be nice just to have some clarity where hey, this is what's going to be this year, and then the next year is a new circumstance.
Hey, Kirk, to your left, Chad Leisico, Des Moines Register. First time since 2012 you've got an outside guy coming in to be your offensive coordinator, so I realize this is somewhat limited foreign turf for you. So how does the process go in installing what you want to do on offense? Do you have a full plan yet? Are you developing that plan as spring goes on? Kind of where are you in the kind of Tim Lester era here? Yeah,
so when Greg came, there were certain things. It was a cooperative effort. We just all sat down and visited. We being the offensive coaches, and I sat in the meetings too. But we just kind of worked through it in a nutshell. Basically, with Greg, we kept a lot of the passing terminology that he was familiar with. We kept that, and then some of the systematic stuff and some of the running game stuff we kept in our language. So there's a mixture there, and but that was his decision basically. He was comfortable with that. I think the bottom line is the guy who's going to call plays has to be really comfortable with what the terminology is going to be, because it's got to come out. It's got to come out pretty quick and naturally. So, and whether it was Tim or whomever we hired this year, it was going to be the same thing, the same discussion. And basically, we're just taking his playbook material and going with it. And it's been a process. So we're trying to install something each and every day. It's been challenging, I think, for everybody, myself included, just learning the language and all that type of thing and trying to keep up. So, we're doing that, seeing how the install is going, then also see how the players are handling that. And where it all ends up, we'll see at the end of spring, and then certainly we'll work through some of that in August too. But so far, so good. It's been good.
Kirk, Blake Hornstein, Hawkeye headquarters. You opened the presser talking about Lisa Bluter and the women's team. I was curious. You don't get to watch a ton of NFL football or baseball during baseball season. Have you gotten a chance to watch Caitlin Clark play? Any general thoughts on her?
I mean, she's obviously an awesome player, and I mean, I don't know where to start. Her impact basketball-wise, and I'm certainly not a basketball expert, but it's pretty obvious. I think the things that maybe impressed me more than anything are just her vision. She's got great vision, her passing ability. If you're a teammate, you better be paying attention. They know that better than I do, because if they're open, it's unbelievable. And she threaded the needle 2 Saturdays ago or 2 weekends ago. I don't know. There was one. I mean, she has a million assists that are really good, but she got one right down to the, from out on top around the foul line in there. I don't know how she got it in there. So she's been impressive that way, just her presence, her demeanor, the way she handles tough situations, whether it's, post-game press conferences, whatever. And, the other thing I'm just fascinated by is like just the attention that it's brought to women's basketball, not just our program, the University of Iowa program, but women's basketball. And I don't know if there's been an athlete that's had that kind of impact. You go on the road and every crowd's a sellout. So maybe that's happened in other sports where, that dramatic of an impact. But I think it just speaks really well to her, her as a player, but more importantly, the way she's handled it. Because I don't know how old she is, 21, 22, and it's a lot to ask. I mean, it's really been impressive to watch her.
Kirk, Elliot Clough, Rivals. Regarding Tim and bringing him in as your new offensive coordinator, I guess how are things going? Person to person wise, plug and go. Like, what does that look like with having a new member of your staff that doesn't happen all that frequently?
Yeah, unfortunately, we haven't had a lot of change or turnover, but when we've had it, it's all been pretty good. We've brought a lot of really good people in here, and probably a bigger adjustment for him since there's more of us that are here. He's the new guy, if you will, that way. But Tim's a great guy, great person. He's a veteran coach and been in a lot of different situations, a lot of different levels, and he's handled it really, really well, and has done a great job with the players as well. So I think it's been I don't want to speak for him, but I think the transition's gone really smoothly, and thus far very, very positive. So not surprised.
Adam Jacoby, Rivals. There's a clear 1, 2, 3 on the quarterback depth chart in the spring practice depth chart here. What are some of your development goals for each of those 3 guys since they're coming in really sort of different spots in their career?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. We want them all to improve, and they all need to, and they all know that. I mean, that's every player on the team, though. And that's, I'll start with our oldest guys, the guys on defense. If they're not thinking that way, we're not going to have a good team next year. Everybody needs to be thinking about that, and what improvement looks like is different for every player, certainly, but quarterback's a pretty prominent position, and Deacon has the benefit of he played the most last year of any of our guys, so certainly he's got the more experience, but awful lot of things he can work on. Marco's got a different set of circumstances and different things to work on, but every player in the team's got things that they need to get better at, and that's what this time period is really about. It gives us a chance to articulate those things, show them on film, and then hopefully put them in situations where they can demonstrate that they are learning and improving, and that's the whole deal. And then the faster you can do it, the better off. But in the depth chart, I'll just say a word about that. I mean, it's whatever it is, March 25th or 6th right now, so it really doesn't mean a lot. And I told the players that in the first meeting. Nobody knows what it's going to look like on September 1st. So right now, let's just worry about getting better and worry about your performance.
Hi, Kirk. Tyler Tashman with the Des Moines Register. Obviously, the portal isn't open right now, but it will reopen. Have you given thought are you guys going to potentially try to add 1 or 2 or however many in the portal? Just where do you stand right now with that?
Sure. We'll know more about our team at the end of spring, and then. Yeah, we're always going to look at it and always consider, and if there's a glaring weakness or a place where we think we can make our team better, absolutely. And some of the guys I mentioned that have come here have really helped our team become better. But just in general terms, our goal is to really continue to grow through develop our team, recruit our team, and then develop them. And that's why this period's so important right now. And it's just a really important time for us. So. We'll continue to look, but it's like the NFL. I think you're better off trying to draft your own players and develop your own players trick there is keeping him because of the salary cap, all that type of deal. But yeah, we're a better football team. Most of our guys are growing here, I think, in the program.
Hi, Kirk. John Steffi, Cedar Rapids Gazette. First of all, Cade, with his injury recovery, what status is, or how involved can he be this spring? And then also any update on medical scholarships or any guys who aren't continuing their football career at this point?
Yeah, nothing on that ladder at this point. So got a couple guys still working their way back. So we'll see how that goes, and it's probably going to be a couple months yet with a couple guys. But as far as Cade goes, he's really limited right now. He can throw the football standing, but he can't be really moving back or moving around or dropping, that type of deal. So kind of got a harness on him because he's always anxious to do a little bit more than he probably should. And but what we don't want to do is go backwards. But I would like to think in June he should be basically full speed to do everything, and then have a couple months to really get used to operating and get comfortable and confident again.
Hi, Kirk. Scott Dockman again. I wanted to ask about this is the first time there aren't divisions in 15 years or whatever. And in your case, you're going to be playing a lot of teams you only played sporadically, and now you're going to have 4 new teams coming in, 2 of which you play. How has that impacted some of your off-season looks? And because you have a new offensive staff, has that really limited that ability to take a look at a Washington or a UCLA that maybe in the past you would have had scouted at least at this point?
Yeah, ironically, they both have new staffs too, entire new staffs on both the schools that we're playing from the West Coast. So. That's one of the hard things in out of season preparation anyway, but you can always, track DNA, go back to the schools the coordinators came from, which we're not at that point yet, but we'll do some of that after spring ball's over. We're over with, and all that talk. And I've sat through a lot of meetings. We argue about schedules and how to break up divisions and all that. I guess it was a year ago, January or February. Sat in one in Chicago. We were there a day and a half talking about schedules and all that, and then we added 2 teams a month later, 2 months later. So take all that stuff and tear it up. What a waste of time that was. To me, the bottom line is you're going to play 12 games and line them up, and that's what you do is you play those teams. Probably the biggest factor I think moving forward is just the travel part of it. And if we only have one West Coast trip a year, that's not major. And this year, fortunately, we have a West Coast and then a bye week, so coming back. It's not so much going out, it's the coming back part that can get a little tricky and kind of throw you out of kilter for the next couple of days.
Dennis Dodd, one more Tim Lester question. Yep. Philosophically, any coordinator's not going to call plays or a series of plays that the head coach doesn't sign off on. The way you guys play and the way you guys win, is it going to look demonstrably different, I guess? Or should?
Yeah, I think it's going to look different, but I think philosophically we're in line. Not that it was a prerequisite, but he's been a head coach, and I think he understands how all 3 things function together. And we have played good defense here pretty much 20 plus years. That was a building block coming in. But playing complementary football and not being reckless with the football is a big part of that, and being good on special teams. So that's been a big part of our blueprint, I guess. And if you coach offense, sometimes you may pay a price because maybe we're not going to throw it out there when we're just trying to win the game last quarter. Play it smartly that way. So, we're stats are great and all that, but the most important stat is winning games, and that's kind of been first and foremost. And my visits with Tim, I think that's where he's at too. He thinks the same way, and he gets it. He gets up. Things work together. Yeah. It helped, but it wasn't a requisite. Yeah, it was not a requisite, but it certainly didn't hurt. And I think his love. I'm as impressed with what he did at the Division III level. In fact, one of his former players was here today at practice. So he's coached at all levels and done a lot of things. And I think having that kind of background really just makes you a better coach, probably, and you a little better understanding of everything, just life in general.
Tom Kakert, Hawkeye Report. Kirk, wanted to ask about D-line. Solid 4 guys who have a lot of experience, but how are you viewing the depth, and what do you need to see this spring from some of those guys that might be emerging?
The offensive line?
Defensive line.
Defensive line, I'm sorry. I mentioned Harold, right? But think about a guy like Max Leon, who hasn't played a lot, but we've seen him growing behind the scenes, if you will, and he's got a lot of good work in right now. feel pretty good about Deontay and feel pretty good about Ethan. They've gotten a lot of work. So we're getting those guys behind them some work, whether it's a guy like Max or a guy like Brian Allen. Pittman's getting a lot of good work in there. Aaron's still a young guy. So, this is really, it's a good time. It's a matter of these guys taking the steps they need to take and continuing to grow. But it's been pretty steady through their careers, and this is a really good opportunity for them right now to keep moving forward.
Hi, Kirk. Jack Leader with KCRG. Good to see you again. I want to go back to something you said earlier with contracts in the NFL. I totally understand you would much rather be coaching football than be the hypothetical commissioner of college football, but have you given any credence to the idea of contracts or unions with college football and with players?
You would need a team of lawyers to probably answer the question. It seems like everything that happens has legal ramifications to it, but I don't know what the answer is. I guess I'm just drawing the analogy or the parallel. The thing was easy, at least in the National Football League, is, a player signs a contract and he's there for the year. He has the option of not playing, but if he's under contract, he plays. And, you can argue about that too, but at least there's a lot of clarity. And again, I'm not against the transfer portal. I'm not against NIL by any stretch, but I think my initial fear with NIL going back to whenever it started getting talked about and started, picking up some traction. I'm old enough to remember, I think it was Nebraska Army. I can't tell you what year. It was like 72 or 3. They beat them 77-7 or 77-0. And it was unpatriotic and not a game where neither team really benefited from it. And to me, if you start getting into that, then you're going to, the risk of football drifting back to, haves and have-nots, I think, increases a little bit if it's strictly on pocketbook. So hopefully we don't get to that point, but, that's one of the potential, byproducts of it. Well, I mean, that's kind of what NIL tends to be. It seems like at least it's going in that direction. So, I'm not sure what pay for play means, but if you offer a guy a really good package, it's kind of like the NFL. We thought we had a chance to get Reggie White. His wife was from Cleveland, ended up in Green Bay. So, it wasn't because of facilities. It was a better contract. So I think there's probably some of that going on. Certainly in what we're doing, it's probably naive to think that that's not the case.
Excuse me, Chad Leistico again. The loss of Proctor, what does that do for your offensive line? I realize you have Richmond back, you have Dunker back. Do you need to groom another, more tackles here? Just with the injury situations you've had. And part two is that I've kind of heard murmurings there might be phasing out the fullback, or are you going to still have a fullback? Yeah, we still have a fullback, a couple of them actually, but Hayden Large is working both positions, tight end and fullback, and then Rusty and Eli Miller's back off his knee injury, and he's still playing fullback. The player you spoke of, we never had. So it's not like he just ever played or really took a rep for us, and it wasn't intentionally he came here. It worked out that way back in January. So, I always look at it. You can't count on anything that basically until guys get out there. That's kind of the way it goes, and we're always going to be trying to develop tackles. It's a tough position to develop, and we're working hard on that right now. I think we got 3 guys with veteran experience that can do a good job out there, and that's a positive, but that's not enough, because 2 of them are going to be gone after this coming year. So, we always need to keep that moving forward.
Kirk, Elliott Clough, Rivals. To go a little bit off the offensive line question, you've got 7 guys coming back this last year that have had starting experience. Yep. I know going into last season we talked a lot about the growth in terms of maturity of the guys up there. I guess, is there anything that you're seeing or that you want to see to take them to that next level of maybe being a little bit more consistent this year?
Sure, yeah. There's been a lot of talk about our offensive production, and quite frankly, to me, it's I still go back and look at film execution, and then part of that's been, we haven't been as good up front as we've been in years past. Talked about us, typically we've been pretty good on defense, try to be good on special teams, and historically our better teams have been pretty good up front. And it's nobody's fault. It's no, there's no finger pointing. It's nobody's fault, but we've had injuries. We've had a recruiting class or 2 where we've had some things work out not in a way we had hoped or maybe would have planned. So all of a sudden you've been a little deficient in an area, and that's shown up, I think, and it's tough to operate offensively, at least in most systems, if you don't block as well as you like. So the good news is I think we are more veteran. It's not like there's any pixie dust we can sprinkle on those guys last year or the year before. In some cases, we've had guys playing probably before they maybe were fully ready to play at a high level. But I think the good news is right now, we have an opportunity maybe to develop into a really good line, because we do have pretty good experience, and I think we have good leadership in there too, and that's paramount to any group, any team. So, I think those guys are shaping up, and it's just a matter of taking the steps in front of them and just keep working. The guys that are out there right now are working hard and doing a good job so far.
Finish up with 4, Matt, Tyler, John, Scott.
Hey, Coach, Matt McGowan with Daily Island. So, as a head coach, how do you navigate change? It seems like the offense is changing, portal is changing, recruitment is changing. How do you, as a head coach, navigate it all?
It's just life. I mean, life changes, and keeps it interesting for sure. To start with, and you just try to rely on the people that you are with every day. Basically, there's a lot of things I've joked about it, but if it's on social media, I don't know how to get there because I don't live in that world. But fortunately, I got people that keep me apprised of things I need to be apprised of. I hope they do, and it's kind of that way in every area. Probably the biggest change is our staff has grown now because we have we never had social media staff before. You have to now. The recruiting staff has grown because we have visitors all the time. So it's just kind of a natural process, if you will. And then you make decisions along the way about how many people do we need in our recruiting department, our social media department, and I'd rather go less than more typically, but. It's about relying on all the people you have. There's a lot of teamwork that goes on in this whole operation. And I'll go back to the first game I coached. One of my friends I taught school with, John Bridge, was here, and he's amazed how many people were involved in just the game day operation. I said, he was a basketball guy, so he was used to smaller groups. And you got 100+ players. There's going to be a lot of people involved, and now those numbers have really grown since then. As far as support staff, so it's just relying on everybody and trying to have good communication and getting everybody's ideas on what do you think we need to be doing, what are we missing, how can we improve, and still keep it in our the framework of the way we want to do things, not just be like everybody else.
Tyler Tashman with the Des Moines Register. You guys were able to retain a lot of guys on defense. What was it just like for you to watch the process of a bunch of starters come back, and are there just any favorite moments you can share of guys telling you they're coming back or anything like that?
I mean, every one of the guys that said they're coming back was a good moment, and just like when guys leave, you hate to have mixed emotions. Selfishly, I mean, all of us would love to have Cooper back, but it was a decision he felt was best for him. So totally get that and totally support him. I'll go back a couple of years ago when we had a little break-in before the whatever bowl that would have been, I guess, Nashville. And both Laporte and Campbell walked to my office within a half hour of each other. They'd come back from that break, and they'd thought about it overwards and said, hey, we're coming back for our, senior years. And so that's always a good thing. You want to keep good players around, but you don't want to do it again if it's not what's best for them. And they've got to make that decision. That's not our decision to make for them. But, getting all the guys back was great. And I think some momentum, once a couple guys decided they were going to do it, we built some momentum that way. And it's a reflection of I think these guys feel, brotherhood or whatever. There's teamwork. There's a team aspect to it where they kind of want to, keep going here and keep playing, see what they can do.
John Steppe again, Cedar Rapids Gazette. Going back to the offensive line, that guard spot that Rusty, his graduation, leaves open. What's kind of your thought process there? When you were saying the 3 tackles, I assume that means you want to keep Nick on the outside, or kind of where do you stand there?
No, not necessarily. Just that Nick can play out there, so we don't envision moving Dunker in there at all, and I don't envision moving Mason in. So it'd probably be our tackle spots, and then everybody else is competing. So it may be Nick, it might be Ellsbury. I don't know. Logan's out right now with a surgery repair, so he's rehabbing. So Tyler's working more at center position, but it's going to be the 5 best guys will be the guys out there. So we'll figure out the equation, how that works, or where they're going to line up. But just let the guys compete. And, again, it's March right now, so who knows what's going to look like here in August. But the good news is we have a bigger pool of experienced guys that hopefully are more confident. I think they'll be more confident and more proficient at what they're doing.
Scott, again, I wanted to ask about Cade, how much he's been able to, work now, and then how do you see him fitting in an offense like this where I think he has some RPO experiences. I think he did at Michigan when he was there. How does he fit into this type of an offense, his skill set?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, I don't see that being a major transition for him at all. And he can't really do much physically right now than throw a ball. Just, stand and throw. They don't want him running around or doing any sudden movements. But he's throwing the ball just fine. That's not an issue. And then the good thing is he has game experience and positive game experience. He's played well when he's healthy. And unfortunately, we never really saw him at full speed last year. So I'm eager to see him where he can move and be mobile and, adjust and do some things. But mentally, he's right there in the huddle with the guys. He's relaying calls to his teammates that aren't in the huddle, that type of thing. And he's 100% involved in it and engrossed in it. So it'll be good to get him back because he's got good experience, and it's the positive there's creates a good window for the other guys to have more reps, more quality reps, and see what they can do too. And really, interested in all the positions on our team, but really curious to see how the two guys competing right now look at the end of spring ball. Yep,
Kirk, I wanted to get your reaction to this hip drop rule in the NFL, if you've even heard of it or what the impact could be.
Yeah, I said last night I was going to Google it and look at it, but I didn't do it, so I apologize. But it's interesting. Yeah, I've heard a lot of talk about it, and then going home last night, it was on the radio they were talking about it on the NFL Network. Sounds like it's about once a game. Those are the numbers I got, and the injury rate's high. My first... I got to see it. I'm not sure I know exactly what it looks like, the horse collar. They referenced that a couple of years ago. And that's probably good to have that out of football. It's not the same as the hip drop, but the tight end from the Rams last year got hurt. When the guys are catching a ball and getting hit blindly, that's a whole different discussion, too. Not that we're on the rules committee, but, it's almost like you're better off hitting guys high. And we don't let our guys hit low in practice like that. It's just a really dangerous situation. We have blindside blocks, and to me, that's like a blindside tackle. There ought to be some. But the other big takeaway I think I have is my concern, and I see this in our game, worry about the rules just putting so much on the officials. That's my biggest concern. And one, we just passed I don't know if it's a suggestion or a mandate where they're going to go back to uniform police, the knees, right? Yeah. And it's like, just get the pass interference calls right. Don't worry about the damn knee pads. It's just because that's a nightmare job. It's like being the, study hall supervisor for the 6th grade. That's hard. That's a hard job. So that is one takeaway I have is, just overloading the officials with so much judgment. Although, you watch these basketball games, I don't know how they officiate those. That's a tough job too. But, so anyway, I'm all for player safety. But, I just don't want to make people have to be over-officious, I guess. It's interesting. Okay. Thank you, guys. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you, too.
All your time for.